Hello friends, welcome to UPSC Logics, and today we are going to have a look at the case history of what happened between Mr. Alok Verma and Mr. Rakesh Asthana. And this particular case has been dubbed by the media as CBI versus CBI, so it's kind of interesting. So we are just going to have a look at all the events that have happened between the two and what is the latest news on the same. So all the facts and figures have been collected from national newspapers, and so let's have a look at the case. So let us understand where all this problem began. And this goes back almost 1.5 years ago when Mr. Asthana, who was a Gujarat cadre IPS officer, and he was made the number 2 man at the CBI. And this particular promotion was done by the selection committee that is headed by the Central Vigilance Commission, or the CVC. Now Mr. Alok Verma, who was the CBI head at that time, he was against Mr. Asthana's elevation, and he said that Mr. Asthana was involved in corruption, and he was being probed in a corruption case related to a Gujarat-based company called Sterling Biotech. And to prove his point, Mr. Verma placed before the committee a confidential report on Sterling Biotech, and there were names of various government officials that included Mr. Asthana's name. And it said that these people had been receiving money from the company, and the CBI was actually probing this particular case. But KV Chaudhary, who was the Chief Vigilance Commissioner at that point, he said that this decision was taken by the members of the selection committee and cannot be changed. So Mr. Asthana became the number 2 man at the CBI. Later on, Common Cause, which is an NGO run by Advocate Prashant Bhushan, they also tried to file a writ in the Supreme Court against Asthana's elevation, but the court refused to admit that particular writ, and they refused to quash Mr. Asthana's elevation. So Mr. Asthana actually became the number 2 man at the CBI against the will of Mr. Alok Verma. Now, since Mr. Asthana was elevated to the number 2 position of the CBI, he had certain credentials under his belt. So he has probed some of the most sensitive high-profile cases in the past 2 decades, and under his belt are the Godhra train fire of February 2002 that led to widespread riots in the state of Gujarat. Then Mr. Asthana also probed the fodder scam and even arrested RJD chief Lalu Prasad Yadav in connection with the scam. Then, as an additional director at CBI, he probed the Vijay Mallya case, the Augusta Westland chopper scam, and he was also probing the INX media case that involved the former finance minister P. Chidambaram. And he was in such demand that Congress President Rahul Gandhi has called Mr. Asthana the PM's blue-eyed boy. So since the Supreme Court refused to quash Asthana's elevation as number 2 man at the CBI, the difference between the two bosses remained, and the war between them kept on brewing and brewing. And when the CVC had sought presence of the CBI director in the selection committee meeting, Verma told the CVC that Asthana could not represent him in meetings to consider postings in his absence. And Mr. Verma said to the CVC that Asthana's role in various cases was itself under scanner. So he said that Asthana could not be consulted for inducting officers in the agency in his absence. So this is when Mr. Verma refused to depute Mr. Asthana to take his position in his absence at various meetings of the selection committee. So when Mr. Verma said that Mr. Asthana could not be deputed in his position in his absence, Mr. Asthana wrote to the government against Mr. Verma, and this complaint was referred to the CVC. So Mr. Asthana accused Mr. Verma of trying to thwart investigations in various important cases, especially the one that concerned the IRCTC scam in which Lalu Prasad Yadav and family were accused. So the CVC sought files of various cases from the CBI to probe the allegations. However, the CBI issued an official statement that defended Mr. Alok Verma and criticized Asthana. So the CBI termed Mr. Asthana's complaint to the CVC against Verma as intimidation of the officers probing Mr. Asthana's role in at least 6 cases. So what happened was that the answer that the CBI gave to the CVC was that since Mr. Asthana was being investigated himself, So he was trying to intimidate the officers that were proving his role in at least 6 of the cases. So there were questions that were raised whether Mr. Alok Verma could use the CBI to defend himself against personal allegations. And Mr. Asthana also wrote to the Cabinet Secretary and the CVC accusing Mr. Verma and his right-hand man, Additional Director Mr. A.K. Sharma, to trying to save the accused persons in several cases. There were some serious allegations made by Mr. Asthana. He said that one Mr. Satish Babu Sana, who was a Hyderabad-based businessman, had paid Mr. Alok Verma a sum of rupees 2 crores to save himself. And this was the case of the meat exporter Moin Qureshi, who was being probed by the CBI on charges of tax evasion, money laundering, etc. So Mr. Asthana claimed that when he wanted to arrest Sana, Mr. Verma had scuttled the move. And when he tried to do so again in February, Mr. Verma had called him up and told him not to do so. Mr. Asthana also said or accused Mr. Verma that he had taken him off various high profile cases like the IRCTC case that was against Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav and the INX media case that involved the former finance minister P. Chidambaram. So in October 2018, the CBI filed an FIR against Mr. Asthana and arrested Devinder Kumar, a DSP in the CBI, and he was working with Mr. Asthana. What was interesting was the fact that the FIR was lodged on the complaint of Sana, who accused Asthana of extorting money from him to shield him in the Qureshi case. So in his complaint, Sana claimed to have paid rupees 3 crores to Asthana through a Dubai-based middleman Manoj Prasad and his brother Sumesh Prasad, and claimed that Manoj had showed him a WhatsApp conversation with Asthana, and when he saw Asthana's picture with the number, it assured him that Manoj had links with Mr. Asthana. Sana also alleged that Manoj had claimed that Asthana had stayed at his home in London the previous year. And he also alleged that Sumesh also dropped the name of senior raw officer Samant Kumar Goyal. The FIR also named Goyal too as a part of the extortion gang. So let us have a look at the timeline of the events. In October 2017, the CBI Director Alok Verma sends a secret note to the CVC saying Rakesh Asthana should not be appointed as the CBI Special Director as he was being probed for corruption. The CVC panel ignores the allegations and clears Asthana's promotion. On February 20, 2018, Asthana seeks Verma's approval to arrest Hyderabad businessman Satish Sana, who was involved in a bribery case against meat exporter Moin Qureshi. Verma rejects the request. On August 24, 2018, Asthana writes to the Cabinet Secretary alleging involvement of Alok Verma and others in 10 cases of corruption, criminal misconduct, etc. That included taking bribe of rupees 2 crores from Sana for getting relief in the Qureshi case. Cabinet Secretary takes these allegations seriously and asks CVC to probe these charges. On September 26, 2018, the CBI Special Investigation Team, led by Mr. Asthana, questions Sana. He claims he paid rupees 2 crores to Verma. On October 4th, in a twist, another CBI team takes Sana before a magistrate and Sana records a statement against Mr. Asthana. On October 15th, CBI files an FIR naming Rakesh Asthana as accused number 1, DSP Devinder Kumar and Dubai-based brothers Sumesh and Manoj Prasad. In the FIR, Sana alleges that he paid over rupees 3 crores to Asthana and others. On October 22nd, the CBI arrests DSP Devinder Kumar. On October 23rd, the Government of India intervenes and divests Verma and Asthana of their powers and appoints Mr. M. Nageshwar Rao as interim director of the CBI. On January 8, the Supreme Court reinstates Verma as the director of the CBI. So friends, this is the timeline of the events up till now or till the 8th of January. So Mr. Alok Verma returned as the CBI director, but there were certain restrictions on him. The Supreme Court said that he could not take any of the major policy decisions. However, there was no clarity on what these policy decisions were. Verma's routine work could include supervising trials and transferring officers. He could continue with investigations into ongoing cases, register new FIRs, etc., and order someone's questioning or arrest. The interim director M. Nageshwar Rao performed all these functions though barred from taking policy decisions. Rao ordered an FIR into the UP sand mining case in which former Chief Minister Akhilesh Yadav was named. So barely 2 days after the Supreme Court had reinstated Mr. Alok Verma, he was removed as a CBI director by a high-powered committee that was headed by Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi on charges of corruption and dereliction of duty. And this was the first time in the 55-year history of the agency. Mr. Verma, who is a 1979 batch IPS officer, had resumed his duty on Wednesday, a day after the top court paved his return with some riders and asked the three-member panel that selects the CBI chief to decide on his continuance in a week in the light of charges against him in the report of the CVC. Mr. Verma's 2-year tenure as Director of Central Bureau of Investigation was due to end on January 31st, 2019 anyways. So the official said that the decision to move Mr. Verma out of the CBI came after the high-powered committee met for the second time in 2 days to decide on Mr. Verma's fate. Mr. Verma has been posted as Director General, Fire Services, Civil Defense and Home Guards under the Union Home Ministry. The charge of the CBI has been given to Additional Director M. Nageshwar Rao, and the government issued an order on Thursday evening. There were 8 charges against Mr. Verma in the CVC report that was presented before the committee that also comprised leader of the Congress in Lok Sabha Mallikarjun Kharge and Justice A.K. Sikri, who had been appointed by the Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi as his nominee. The decision at the 2-hour meeting of the committee was taken by 2 to 1 majority, with Mr. Kharge opposing the move, the officials said. So what happened on 11 January 2019? Mr. Alok Verma decided not to join as the Director General Fire Services, Civil Defense and Home Guards and said that natural justice was curtailed and the entire process was turned upside down in ensuring that he was removed from the post of Director CBI. And this was written in his resignation, which was written to the Secretary Department of Personnel and Training Chandmoli C. And on the other hand, the High Court didn't give any relief to the CBI Special Director Mr. Rakesh Asthana and the other officers that included Deputy Superintendent of Police Devinder Kumar in the case that was filed by the CBI on the complaint of Mr. Sana or Satish Sana, who had said that he had paid Mr. Asthana a sum of rupees 3 crores. So friends, do let me know in the comment section what do you think about this particular case, the CBI versus CBI as it has been dubbed by the national media. And do you think Mr. Alok Verma is right or Mr. Rakesh Asthana is right, or was it Satish Sana who took the CBI for a ride? So thank you so much for watching and do like and subscribe to this channel, and Jai Hind.